Oh, thanks,
Do
B-Rats in
we
the
want
chat. Yeah,
to
nice.
do a little bit of talk about what we're gonna talk about today before we bring in our
Sure.
lovely guest?
Let me read a little bit of what I've written here. I hadn't actually
Yeah.
finished it. Like I said, I was running around with a headless chicken right before the stream. But for trans people, the last 20 years have been a process of trading safety for visibility. As cis people have become more aware of us, they've made their hatred known in numerous ways: physical violence, systemic violence, discrimination, culture war scapegoating, and, of course, medical gatekeeping. Many trans people, however, are turning to self-medicating as their way around the gatekeeping of the cis medical system. That's where my writing runs out. This rest of the bit will be improvised. I'm already fucking it up, as you can tell. That's what we're talking about today, is people self-medicating. This is completely in line with the point of our show, which is that people are going to turn to illegal and uncivil resistances to the systems that are killing them. And the big comparison throughout this episode is going to be with unregulated abortion, because,
Yeah,
and I use that
absolutely.
term unregulated, not unsafe,
Yeah.
not back alley. It's just unregulated. And it's very much the same situation here. We're going to be talking about DIYing, which is the practice of self-medicating, hormone replacement therapy for trans people. And it doesn't just mean so in the trans community, it's generally used to mean one thing, which is buying hormones through gray market websites and then self-medicating. However, I want to point out very early on that trans people actually like share their HRT all the time. Just like you're waiting for your doctor to approve this prescription refill. Your friend happens to have the same medication that you're on and a little bit of it left over, so they give you it. You know, it's like it's no big deal. Everybody does it who knows someone who's on the same medication as them, and trans people know a lot of people who are on the same medication as them. So it's actually
like I mean,
very natural
I know
thing.
people that do this with their like their ADHD medication.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
the same thing, right? Like
I've had someone we were hanging out, and I was just feeling a bit anxious being in this cafe with a lot of people around, kind of post-pandemic, and she was just like, "Hey, do you want an anti-anxiety med? I don't take those." Like, and it was just I thought it was a very nice offer, you know. But I don't want to. But though I'm being dismissive of like the dangers of self-medicating, and though I will kind of continue to be throughout this because it's really important that we tackle some myths, I want to be clear that we are not here to offer medical advice. We will not be offering medical advice. We will be talking about the ways that more safe medical advice and information should be spread and could be spread to make people safer. But we are not a medical advice outlet, and none of us are medical professionals as far as I'm aware. And so we are not doing that. We are reporting on a way that people are reacting. We are reporting on a way that people are reacting to an oppressive system that is killing people.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's right. I thought that was pretty succinct, Soph. I think that's pretty
well, thanks.
Yeah, self-explanatory. It is one of those as well. It's like, you know, you will speak to some people and they will be like vehemently against this, like I told you. So like there's someone who's incredibly not okay with me asking for information.
Do you remember what it was they said?
I could bring it up if you like. Hold up a second. Let's have a go. Okay,
that's the thing that's funny, because it's mostly, I think, only known about in the trans community, which means that the people who are then against it are mostly trans people themselves, because it's like older trans people who are like, no, don't do that, that's dangerous.
Yeah. So basically, the person, obviously, I'm not going to name this person because it's not fair. You know, they're completely within their right to say this, but basically said to me, no, as it is illegal and extremely dangerous. Hormones are nothing to play around with. Why do you ask?
So, well, because of course, as we all know, the law is the arbiter of morality and safety.
That's right.
But I say older trans people specifically because it does tend to be an issue of like older trans people who are against it, and that's not to say there's an issue here to do with transition where some people say that like your trans age kind of resets when you come out, like you're effectively a teenager when you come out because like you're starting your life over in many regards. So I'm not just saying older as in someone who is 50 or something. I'm talking about older like they've been out for a long time. Like it's often those people who are more likely to be against it. And a big part of the reason is exactly what I talked about in the intro. The last 20 years have been a huge shift, and I'm certain Keffals will have loads to say about this as well, has been a huge shift in the visibility of trans people. And this is also a pattern we're going to talk about, because we're about to talk about all around the world. This is actually something very exciting. I'll mention in a sec. This is a pattern you can see still going on. People are not aware of trans people, and then they become aware of trans people, and then the pitchforks come out, right? And then all the gatekeeping starts happening. And while people are unaware of trans people, but doctors are just about aware, actually trans people at the moment tend to have like some of the easiest, cheapest, safest routes of healthcare in those places, because they can go to the doctor and just quietly have their healthcare sorted. And a lot of people talk about this as having like they had their transition care all sorted 20 years ago or whatever, and it was fine. And they're looking at the situation for people now, and they're like, how the fuck has it gotten this much worse?
Interesting.
Before we because I think it's a good time to eventually, like the next 5 minutes, bring Keffals on. But before we jump into that, I want to thank Keffals for the sub for 11 months. That was an hour ago. Ghost, thank you for gifting sub to M Pirate. Tale of Two Rabbit, thank you for the 200 bits. You're wonderful. Thank you. Vic, thanks for giving sub to Dionychus Turbo Laser, and Dumb Marv, thank you for the Prime sub. I appreciate it. And also I'm going to read your comments because it's directly relevant to the conversation we're having. Let's see, where is it? Uh-oh, did I lose it? Give me a second. Where is it? Crap.
Well, let me just say in this moment, I do want my co-hosts, cis though you unfortunately are,
I'm sorry,
to absolutely like join in today. Like I'm definitely I got a lot of notes, and I'm gonna be like blasting you with all my stuff to say,
DIYing alongside all of you.
That's right.
I'm looking forward to this.
You should also take hormones with me. Please do like engage with the like ask questions. I definitely want to make sure there's a general understanding around, because part of the reason I've wanted to do this reporting for so long, we've been planning this for weeks and weeks, and part of the reason this is so important to me is that I think people really need to have a good understanding of what's going on here. And so I don't want anybody to be left out and be in any doubt about anything. So I'll answer everything to the best of my ability.
Thank you for that, Sophie.
Appreciate you.
So Dumb Marv says, I came here to say that I'm starting self-med HRT next week, and not gonna lie, it's exciting, and I'm shitless scared. So yeah, I'm glad you're here for this episode. And thank you once again for the sub. I appreciate it. And welcome.
And good for you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. Woe be the hosts who cis yet remain. Indeed. And and by the way, I will say I am a sissy saying this, but I will say that cis people being involved in the conversation doesn't mean taking over the conversation or dictating the conversation or trying to take the position of authority in the conversation. Sometimes this is a hard one for us.
Like,
Tim,
damn, I was about to do that.
Oh wow, she didn't.
I was so ready to assume authority. Like, I love doing that. It's my thing.
We had this argument a lot in my chat when like it's like a thing. So.
About me?
Yeah, we talk about. I'm like, God damn it, Tim! We have our Tim hour. We just talk about how much that can't let him get away with this anymore.
Oh,
are there more subs or anything, or should we bring in Keff?
We're good. Yeah.
The Keffster.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, let's bring her in.
Keffals.
Oh shit. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Oh wait, do we have our camera? Do you have the camera set up by any chance? Did you see the link that I
joined.
Yeah,
she's here. Yeah, she's in. Yep.
They're in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
All right.
Okay,
I mean, I would assume that everyone probably already everyone's watching already knows who you are, but like, I don't know, you want to give a little intro?
I can't figure out stuff.
Oh, geez.
Give me a second, actually.
Hello.
Oh, wait.
Okay, hold on. Yeah,
actually, you know what? I think it's my side.
Is it even Red Planet if we're not having technical issues when the guest joins?
I know, we've had like
That's right.
10 already.
Yeah.
All right.
Is my mic okay?
Oh, you sound great to me.
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay, cool.
I feel like y'all are being a bunch of haters. I'm not gonna lie. There we go. Okay, perfect. I'm sorry.
Brilliant.
All right.
Oh my God, Keffals, you look really good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Damn, you look like the cover of New York Magazine.
Okay.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
Wait, what's
I just saw that.
about?
It's like so sick.
That's so weird.
Keffals has got a twin.
Oh,
in,
the Ukrainian woman on the cover of New York Magazine has an uncanny resemblance to me.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Same camo uniform and gun and everything. It's wild.
Well, before we get too far into this, let's take a quick screenshot. So everyone pose.
Oh, just before you do, just before you do, Keffals,
right,
she,
get
her.
your gun out.
Wait,
I am using she, her pronouns.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I was using they, them for a while, and I've changed my mind.
I am so sorry about that. I did not know.
No, it's totally
okay. When did
okay.
this change happen?
I don't know.
Oh.
Sometime like the last month, I was
okay.
just
So it's not like super old change, and I'm like completely behind. Okay.
Yeah, I was like testing it out for a while, and then I had to keep correct. It's harder to get people to respect gender neutral pronouns than it is to get people to respect she, her. And I realized it doesn't make me upset enough that I want to constantly advocate for it. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna use she, her.
Right.
Yeah.
That sucks.
But
I get it.
Yeah, it does suck.
Yeah. I've just considered toying around with they, them just to see. And I'm like, but I don't know if I have it in me to like fight that fight and like, you know what I mean? So it's, yeah.
That's wild because I mean, like, I feel like you gotta fight in spirit.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm tired. I'm just like, not another thing. You know.
Okay.
Depends what you're fighting about. Yeah.
Are we doing a screenshot?
Should we pose for a screenshot for Twitter?
All right, everyone.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Okay. Yay, we pose. I hope chat pose too.
Chat did not.
Do it. Chloe wants me to do it. Oh my god, Chloe, I don't know. I don't know. All right.
Did you want to introduce? Did you introduce yourself, Keffals?
Yeah.
Now that you're here.
I'm Keffals. I'm a trans woman. I'm a Twitch streamer. Lately, I've been covering like a lot of news, like a lot of the legislative battles happening in the United States, specifically around trans youth. So I've been covering like Texas and Idaho and Florida and all of these states that have anti-trans bills like almost every day. It's been kind of exhausting, but I feel like it's important to do. Like for a lot of politics streams, it's like one thing and they talk about it for a couple hours and then it's over, when it's this long ongoing thing that you can cover for hours and hours and hours. It's just not as good for clicks.
There's absolutely a war on trans people going on right now, and that's a huge part of why I wanted to have you on as the guest. Because like you don't have experience DIYing. I asked about this, but like
I don't.
But you have been doing some of the best coverage of the war on trans people in America right now, and kind of between that and my knowledge of cursed Turf Island, I feel like we'll have a pretty good background of discussion about the attacks on trans people.
It's really scary. I'm not American. I'm Canadian, and it's like I have Turf Island over there, and I have the U.S. over there, and it's like I know it's a matter of time until this starts happening in Canada. So far, there haven't really been any legislative things happening against trans people here. It's mostly just like groups of TERFs organizing protests.
Yeah. It's wild how much of it is such like a fucking British export thing, right? Like it's like down here in New Zealand there was like a bunch of there are a bunch of kind of active kind of TERFy types and various groups or whatever, but they're all they've all been seeded by these like fucking Turf Island groups or whatever. There's like one of like the most active, I would say, probably most active New Zealand TERFs, became like I think she was like the communications manager for the leader of our main opposition party. And it was like this thing where all of a sudden we started seeing these really like fringe talking points people trying to push them into the mainstream, you know? And it totally tanked though. It totally tanked. Like she like went down in approval. I mean, there's like a bunch of other shit as well, but it was pretty unpopular and they all lost their jobs or whatever. But it was like scary kind of seeing this thing where it's like this is like weird, like mum's near, like bottom of the barrel discourse being like pushed into, like trying to being shoehorned into just mainstream shit. It's
well,
like,
it's interesting
absolutely.
that you say that, because it's like if you read the transgender issue by Sean Fay, she talks about how the media in the UK regarding trans people sort of pre 2010 was all just this kind of like, oh my god, trans people are this fringe thing that we don't know about. And obviously there was like a lot of humiliating, like really bad articles about like trans people and the trans experience and stuff like that. And I feel like that has kind of evolved to a point, because in Britain I feel like there's this culture where we just like don't talk about anything. Like, no, you don't talk about fucking anything, like anything important. Don't talk about politics. Don't talk about, unions or anything like that. And then, so when trans people became more visible, sort of in the 2010s, like, mid 2010s and stuff, then I feel like it was sort of like a perfect sort of, I guess, way for far right ideas about trans people to sort of like just explode. Especially with, and someone else in the chat pointed this out, the funding of anti-trans hate groups by US evangelical groups as well. Absolutely,
that's actually something I want to jump in on. It's really important, because Tim, you were saying like this is these British exports, and absolutely, like LGB Alliance have been trying to set up branches all around the world. In particular, like, if you look at the way that they're adjusting to different climates, you can pinpoint how much they are obviously like a far right organization and a hate group. Because if you look at like LGB Alliance Poland, for example, LGB Alliance Poland is anti-abortion. Like, they're claiming to be a feminist organization fighting for gay rights, and like then they're just like, it's very obvious what they're doing. But yes, no, they're not actually exactly a British export. Like, their experiment worked in Britain, so now they're trying to replicate it all around the world. Yeah, exactly. But like, it's totally an evangelical American money thing, and totally funded by evangelical Christian American money. It's the Tavistock case, which like Kira Bell versus Tavistock, a detransitioner who sued Tavistock, claiming that they pressured her into transitioning. Her lawyer, because she's a TERF, and then like the lawyer that the TERFs kind of, well, they didn't crowdfund him. They fucking like, they paid for this expensive fucking lawyer with like Coke money, basically. He's a guy who's fought anti-abortion cases in the States. And then that case was cited in Greg Abbott's interpretation of the Texas child abuse laws, right? Like, you can see really clearly how it's like how the one hand washes the other. Like, they are just like, they've paid for this, they got the results they wanted, and now they're using it to different ends. J.K. Rowling is another great example of how they've used money to gain influence over people who have cultural influence, and more scarily, kind of over people who have political influence, like Liz Truss or whatever.
Oh god, I was just seeing something tangentially related. One of the World Professional Association of Transgender Health Committee chairs is now endorsing gender exploratory therapy, which is like, it's being championed by like Christians to be used as conversion therapy against trans people. It's being mentioned in the anti-trans bills.
So hang on a minute. That's gender exploratory therapy.
Are you sure? Have you considered trying just being something else instead? That's what it is. It's not. You should explore your gender more. It's, you should explore the gender we think you have more.
So that's why they've called it.
Like, that sounds fine, exploring your gender, but no.
Yeah, it's actually very alarming. Like, speaking of the war on trans people, because like a few months ago, I absolutely would have pointed to WPATH, the World Professional Association Transgender Healthcare, as like to contrast against Britain. I would have been going like literally when I was talking to my MP, when I was trying to before. I now have to go and have a new appointment with my new MP because my previous one got suspended for racism. Classic British moment. But
oh my God.
When I was talking to him before, one of the things I was saying was like, you need to look at the ways that what these people are saying does not line up with WPATH. WPATH is saying the right stuff, and the UK are actually like breaking international guidance on this. And now WPATH are fucking full of TERFs as well, and that's what evangelical money can do. Is get you influence to the point where you can infiltrate all of these organizations. WPATH also, Keffals, I don't know if you saw this, but like were claiming just like actually the opposite of science. Like they were claiming shit like that estrogen can turn into testosterone in the body, which is just not true. Like testosterone can turn into estrogen in the body, but they're just like being like endocrinologically just wrong. Like, that's fucked. Like they let.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like a really good way to undermine trans people would be to infiltrate these professional bodies. That determine so much about our lives.
No, I mean it's a thing I've commented on before. I don't know if I've said it on the show, but like between the doctors that you'll get, between the doctors that you'll get, there are really three kinds. There's transphobes, chasers, and cis doctors who haven't yet realized they're actually trans. And the reason you won't get trans doctors is because they are forcibly pushed out of the industry. I actually got my initial referral, which led to me getting my healthcare through someone who was well known as like the harshest, like following everything to the letter, like gatekeeper of healthcare within the private network I crowdfunded to go through. And they've come out as non-binary since, which I guess like I can kind of understand, like maybe they were like had some kind of complex going on and that's why they were like that. But since they've come out, they're not on the network anymore. They've literally been kicked off because if you're trans, you can't be objective about trans healthcare, can you?
That's wild.
Obviously.
So even though they were like to the letter doing their job,
that's so stupid.
Yeah,
that's like saying that
Well, I certainly wouldn't expect trans people to be doing the most rigorous forms of research and science into trans healthcare. That's a spoiler for later in this episode.
No, they would never do that.
Oh, wait a second, that's a spoiler for later in my notes. Oh shit.
Oh no.
Shall we?
Yeah. I saw Ali Simone in the chat saying that the doctor just got pushed out and she's trans and that caused them to lose their healthcare, which is like so fucked up.
That's the thing that
it's
can
just
happen.
Like really silly though. It's like saying if you've ever had cancer, you're too biased to be an oncologist.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's completely absurd.
Racist against cancer.
I've heard, this is like just secondhand anecdotal, but I have heard that some people are having their like healthcare like really questioned if they have had the same doctor as me, like referring them. Like they'll go to the hospital for treatment that is related. Like people are going for their bottom surgery or whatever, and they're having their appointments, and then the people are looking over the notes and they're like, oh, who referred you? Oh, it was Dr. so and so. Well, I don't know, that doesn't. Yeah, exactly. Like so clearly, you're just being let in. Yeah,
that's really interesting because it treats being trans as like a political bias, like almost like like it's not like when Keffals is giving the example of cancer, no one would think that would make any sense because they're like, well, obviously that's ridiculous. But when it comes to being trans, it's still, to think that would provide a bias means that being trans is still considered like a political allegiance, like an opinion, like something that you can be convinced in and out of or something. Like it's treating it absolutely like it's not a legitimate thing.
It's like, like you would never think about, like you can imagine, like you have a doctor that has something like, like endometriosis or something, and they go, oh, actually, I have that condition, and maybe we should, maybe this is for you or something like that. It's like, it's so fucking wild, it's like, that's the kind of person that you would ideally want to go see because they have some personal experience.
Yeah.
Right.
So in older editions of like the WPATH standards of care, they had what they called real life experience.
Yeah.
And so like basically before you would be able to start a medical transition, they'd want you to like live full time as the gender you identify as, like come out to like all your coworkers, come out at school, come out to your family.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And then would they still have the power to like deny your medical transition after that sort of thing? So
yeah, they would if they didn't think it fit enough. Like older still, like you're talking about the classic era of transphobic bullshit, like Silence of the Lambs shit. they really wanted to know that you'd had certain like childhood experiences, like of dressing up in your mom's clothes or whatever, and wishing that you could have changed your gender and all this shit. You have to have had that. That's not really the case anymore, but like it used to be like so ridiculously prescriptivist. Like you have to have from day one been like secretly trying on makeup and wearing heels, and then you have to have already been, as Keffals said, like out to everyone for 2 years, and then you can finally get medical treatment.
Which is
So
there's They Love Judas in the chat as well, mentioning that that's the rules still in New Zealand, which I have heard from people that they've had to, like do that kind of, like act, or like perform their gender for like a certain period of time or whatever. But we have we have the public health system, which kind of covers, like it does cover trans healthcare to an extent, and there's also kind of like a couple years ago even it was crazy. There is like a public option for what they call gender reassignment surgery or whatever, which is kind of a ridiculous name for the surgery or whatever, but that's GRS is what it's called, like bottom surgery. And so yeah, it used to be something like 30 or 40 years, but now because they kind of allocate different amounts of funding for different kinds of surgeries, and so for GRS or whatever, they just allocated a bunch more a couple years ago, and I think there was only one doctor that was actually one surgeon that was doing it, but now they've got a couple, and also the funding I think also covers surgery.
Oh, that's really cool.
Maybe in Australia or something.
There's only one doctor in Canada.
Yeah, it's fucking wild, right? But
in
now
the
they
UK,
can do
until recently, there was only one doctor who did bottom surgery for trans men. Now there are two, but the two guys recently gave someone a vaginectomy who did not want one.
What?
Without asking.
You just slip and do that?
What?
Right.
And so access to bottom surgery was like completely shut down for a little while, but now that it's back, like I'm hearing from like trans men I know, they're just like, well, I don't want to go to see those guys because they are just doing a horrible medical malpractice. And then everyone else is also stuck in this horrible position. Like they don't want to sue those guys because they're the only guys. Like they're not going to get necessarily replaced by someone better. They might just go and then there'll be no bottom surgery again.
Also, just like the idea of that, like imagine that blowing up in the news and the TERFs getting a hold of it,
I know.
But yeah, I think like at the moment now it's like the wait list has gone down to something like it's like 10, 11 years or something like that, which is like a substantial drop down from what it used to be, but it's still like wild, So like
that's insane.
Everyone I know that's done it is like just they're just like fuck it, go private and just go like there's like places in Thailand and stuff that are like
that's pretty much what happens.
And that's like not too far from New Zealand. Like it's it's like quite inexpensive to go fly over there or whatever. So it's that thing where it's like they go like, oh, the public option is there. But...
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I went to Thailand for sexual reassignment surgery.
The
way it works with the Canadian government is that if you go private, but they deem it medically necessary, you can get them to cover it, but you need to pay out of pocket first. So my family paid out of pocket for me and then got reimbursed.
Your Twitter has been really insightful recently as to your like journey and your transition and stuff, like because I hope you don't mind me saying this, obviously.
Oh no, it's okay.
But like you literally came out to like everyone at the same time, didn't you? Like when you were like, I don't know if you want to talk about that a bit more, that's kind of relevant.
I never really talked about it that much, but then like with all the stuff going on, it just felt like really personal to me. Like I came out I started hormones when I was 16 years old. So it's like I was a minor. I didn't have my parents' support. But I knew who I was and I knew what I wanted to do. And I found a doctor that was willing to treat me, even though at the time he was skirting the rules doing it. He eventually did lose his license, but I really thank him for what he did.
Shit.
Yeah. No, I came out to everyone at once by changing my name on Facebook and changing my picture. Like all my classmates, my extended family.
What?
I was just like,
that's actually awesome.
Yeah, this is easier.
Dr. Helen Weberly, who I actually raised money for Gender GP, which is one of the two private organizations here. She's lost her license as well because of targeting by transphobes. Just like
Yeah.
So I want to dive into my notes a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because we actually have a bunch. Because this is the first episode we've had, and I was saying this earlier, and I'm very excited about this, where we got feedback from viewers. It's not like people talking about cool stuff they're doing. Well, I mean, I think it is, because they're talking about hormone. They're talking about their own experiences with hormone DIYing. Cool.
Yeah.
But I want to talk a little bit about the methodology first. I want to be clear. We put a few call outs for people to share their experiences with us, but because of the issues with the legality, we are keeping everything anonymous. We will be quoting from some of the feedback, but we also I deleted all of the messages on our end once we were done. So even if someone were able to hack our account or whatever, they won't be able to see any of the messages that we have with any of the people who talked about it. And I think we got a really good. I think we got a really, really nice bunch of feedback. And we'll get to that in a minute. And hopefully my co-hosts can read some of the quotes. But I want to say, and I've said this already, but I'll say it again. Up front, DIYing isn't harmless. Just like unregulated abortion, there is, in fact, a risk of death. You could literally develop a serious enough medical issue, you could die. It's a lower risk. It's nothing like having an unregulated anesthetized surgery or unregulated taking abortion pills, right? When I'm making that comparison, I'm not making that comparison to say it's just as dangerous, right? It's the possibility of you developing a blood clot, an issue with your liver, other issues that can arise from hormones. They are much lower risks, and it's also about timescales, right? If you were having an unregulated abortion, the risk would present to you immediately, were something to go wrong. With DIYing, and this is something we're going to talk about throughout the episode today, blood tests are the big thing. If you are able to get regular blood tests and check your hormone levels, you're basically fine, because if you're taking hormones that you reliably know are in fact the hormones that you want, and you're regularly getting blood tests and nothing's being flagged up as dangerous, you don't have bad levels, you're not likely to develop any of the kind of issues. And things like blood clots, that's an issue that you counter by exercising and going out enough and stuff like that. So what I want to focus on is that the risk is there, but the reason I'm making the comparison to unregulated abortion is that the risk is only there because of gatekeeping. So let me explain. I now have a prescription. I get my hormones from my doctor, from my pharmacy, but prescribed by my doctor, and I take them myself. My doctor doesn't fucking put my pills in my mouth. For people who do their shots, some people have to have their get their shots done by a nurse or by a doctor. But you take your own medicine, and then when I'm getting blood tests, I get them done on my own schedule. And at the moment, I'm really behind on getting my most recent blood test. I'm 6 months behind just because I keep on putting shit off and forgetting about it. And I'm presenting the same risk as someone else who is, behind on their blood test if they were DIYing. If I'm taking exactly the same stuff that someone who is DIYing might be taking, I'm behind on my blood test, and the risk is identical. And I have a prescription. So in terms of prescribed versus DIYing, right, the risk only comes from the ability to access blood tests. Now, the problem is blood tests aren't an informed consent thing here or in most of the world. And what I mean by that is you can't just rock up to your doctor and be like, yo, I want a blood test. I want to check my hormone levels. And they'll give you one free and easy everywhere in the world, right? There are some cases where that can happen, but yeah, it's not something you can regularly get. And one of the ways that we can advocate for the safety of people who are DIYing is by advocating for blood tests to be available for everyone.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's interesting.
Can
I mean, there's so many reasons why that would be good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
well, I mean, yeah, people get blood tests for all sorts of shit. Absolutely, like it would be great to get blood tests. They are privately available. Like there are labs that do private blood testing. But yeah, that's the thing.
And as you will soon find out, you cannot defeat an enemy that you cannot see.